Hi, I'm back with another vlog, and today I want to take a look at some of what Vice.com had to say about Nelson Sullivan. So the article is called Remembering New York's Downtown Documentarian Nelson Sullivan. 25 years ago this month on July 4th, 1989, video artist Nelson Sullivan suddenly died of a heart attack, leaving behind almost 1,200 hours of footage of the now iconic and heavily romanticized downtown New York scene. The article was written by Emily Colucci and was published on July 7th, 2014. The link to this article was shared with me by Robert Coddington, who is Nelson Sullivan's archivist. So I would like to thank Robert for sharing that with me because I think it's a pretty good read. It's a very long, involved article, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but there's a couple pieces I wanted to share with you today. But I will link to the article below so you can go read the whole thing if you're interested. So here's some of what they had to say. Like many artists over the period, Andy Warhol heavily inspired Sullivan as seen in his ever-present video camera, which like Warhol's tape recorder became almost an extension of his persona. Drawing on Warhol's adoration of boredom, Sullivan tapes reveal the lengthy and at times mundane backstage and dressing room conversations. Warhol himself even makes an appearance in Sullivan's work. Discussing his relationship to Warhol, Marvin Taylor, the director of New York University's Bales Library and Special Collections, which holds the Nelson Sullivan video collection, explains, "He's clearly heavily influenced by Warhol. Even the notion of documenting a scene. His relationship with Holly Woodlawn is important because of that lineage, but he has his own set of people, John Sex, RuPaul, and all the others who were part of his moment and his scene. He's very consciously working that." While much of Sullivan's earlier work sees Sullivan disappearing into the background like a fly on the wall, noticeable only when one of his subjects greets him with a nonchalant "Hi Nelson," his videos evolved, and in 1987 he turns the camera on himself, abandoning his enormous VHS camcorder for a smaller 8mm. After suffering a hernia due to the camera's weight, Sullivan begins to maneuver the 8mm camera in order to transform himself into the narrator of his own artistic documentation. Much like his friend's self-fashion identities in the nightclubs, Sullivan constructs his own persona as a witty queer and unquestionably Southern. Wandering through the decadence of the 1980s nightlife, drag historian Joe E. Jeffries, who points to Sullivan as a predecessor of his own video documentation of drag, views Sullivan's sudden appearance in his own videos as significant. "What's amazing to me about Nelson's work is that he includes himself in his own," says Jeffries. "He's able to take the camera, turn it on himself, and become the narrator. He's not just the vocal narrator, but he's actually visually present as the narrator in his work, which takes it to another place and another level. A lot of people looking at the work think there must be another cameraman out there, but no. He was just that fluid with the camera he was using." After Sullivan's tragic and unexpected death, which came just days after he quit his day job to pursue a cable access show, his childhood friend Dick Richards quickly secured Sullivan's staggering collection of videos, storing them in his Atlanta home with his partner David Goldman, and occasionally screening a selection on his own cable access show, The American Music Show. In 1993, queer historian archivist Robert Coddington was introduced to Sullivan's work through Richards. While at first fascinated by Sullivan's merging of art and documentary, Coddington did not realize its historical importance until years later in 2000, when he, Richards, and Goldman dedicated themselves to preserving and promoting Sullivan's work and legacy. Since then, the three have mounted numerous exhibitions on 4 continents, placed Sullivan's videos in film festivals, and more recently started a YouTube channel, the 5 Ninth Avenue Project, hosting a selection of edited versions of Sullivan's videos. Through the 5 Ninth Avenue Project on YouTube, Sullivan's videos have gained a new, younger, and wider viewership. Asked what the response has been to the 5 Ninth Avenue Project, Coddington responds, "It's incredible. There's so many people that write us at the channel. There's a lot of younger kids who are looking at New York." Of course, New York is not what it was back in his day. One of the biggest hits we've got is a video taking the subway to Coney Island. A lot of websites use the footage to talk about old New York, especially with the graffiti on the subway. There's a lot of nostalgia in the comments. However, the moment that in Coddington's opinion really solidified issues about Nelson being relevant or not came in September 2013 when Fales Library and Special Collections acquired the Nelson Sullivan video collection as part of their Downtown collection, which holds archives from New York subcultural luminaries. Director Marvin Taylor recalls Robert Coddington contacted me, said that he had Nelson's material, and asked if I knew about him. I knew the name, but I had not seen very much of the footage. So he sent me a link to it, and I went, oh, this is unbelievably amazing. Not just his documentation of the club scene in the 80s, but also because of Nelson's work himself as this queer artist very consciously floating through the scene. It conjured all kinds of notions from the Rumbad series, and a link with French decadence. We didn't have any documentation like this at all. Questioned about the historical importance of Sullivan's videos, Taylor says, the club scene often gets dismissed as just partying, but the truth is, and what Nelson actually shows, is how much art was being created there. It was one of the last little bubbles before the internet, one of the last insular cultures that we don't have anymore because everything has gone global and digital. He captured perhaps one of the last analog moments in New York. While Sullivan's videos may be the last analog moment in New York, as Taylor suggests, his work also clearly foreshadows more contemporary forms of DIY videos. Recording his experiences like video diaries, particularly after '87, Sullivan's work takes on an undeniable similarity to the self-representation and self-constructed personas inherent in vlogging. While Sullivan's work may have been too obscure to have a palpable and perceptible effort on the development of vlogging, Coddington notes, he was the first vlogger when you look at it. Another perhaps more direct continuation of Sullivan's video documentation of the raucous, rebellious, and sometimes raunchy nightlife and performance scenes is Joe E. Jeffries' drag show, Video Verit, a video project screening Jeffries' footage of nightlife performances from drag to burlesque to boylesque, including many of the same performers that appear in Sullivan's videos years earlier. Introduced to Sullivan's work through Coddington during his research on downtown drag legend Ethel Eichelberger, Jeffries immediately recognized the power of Sullivan's videos to capture and preserve past performances. As Jeffries remembers, it was an amazing thing to see these old pieces of history that I'd otherwise see in a still photograph. You weren't there, but this is generally as close as you're going to get. Thinking about the importance and ongoing legacy of Sullivan's videos, Robert Coddington explains, he did more than just capture the scene. He was able to show the people of today and the future, start of this DIY culture that we have. Considering the question further after our conversation, Coddington sent me a quote from an interview he conducted with World of Wonder co-founder Fenton Bailey as part of his archival research on Sullivan. Bailey understands Nelson's videos as a record of the origin of today's pop culture. If you want to understand why we are here now, all you have to do is look at there then, says Bailey. And thanks to Nelson's archives, you can do that. How important is that? Well, that is actually incredibly important because that's history, and no one else, funnily enough, was doing it, and no one else did it. So his archives are a completely unique moment. Nelson's archives are as valuable in its own way as the pyramids in terms of telling you about a society at a certain point and what it believed it was about. As Marvin Taylor echoes, I think people will come to understand if you really want to know what it was like in the 1980s in New York, you have to watch Nelson Sullivan's videos. Subscribe to the 5 9th Avenue Project's YouTube channel, which I'm sure probably all of you have already done. Anyway, that's probably the majority of the article, but I didn't read some portions that I think I've covered before in previous videos. So I hope you guys found this article interesting. Again, I will link the article below so you can read the whole thing in its entirety. But it's definitely a really good read, and thanks again to Robert Coddington for forwarding this to me. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out some of my other videos or playlists. If you have not yet subscribed, you can do so by clicking the kitty, and I will see you guys again for my next upload.